Welcome to our webinar entitled Houston, We Have a RevOps Problem. My name is Colin Gelfer from Atrium, and I lead our customer engagement team. And I'll be your host as we discuss how leading companies are winning at revenue operations in order to drive more value for their organizations. At the end of our presentation, we'll have a short demo that shows some of these concepts in action, so please make sure to stick around till the end. Atrium is a consulting partner that helps companies maximize their investments in Salesforce.com and customer experience capabilities by combining CRM strategy expertise with data science and analytics skills so that we can push insights into cloud applications to drive action. At Atrium, we're really focused on helping clients take advantage of this generational shift we are seeing in the enterprise, where companies are moving towards more intelligent systems. And one of the functional areas that has truly blossomed during this intelligent era is revenue operations. Today, many companies are seeking to leverage data to identify and acquire high-quality revenue streams that are both predictable and recurring. That's their goal. And to do that well, you have to make your systems more intelligent. And what's been really interesting to see is the acceleration of RevOps as a concept in many companies during the past year and a half. And you see this borne out when you visit LinkedIn and search for RevOps job titles. A 300% increase in RevOps titles in the past 18 months alone on LinkedIn. And not only are these teams growing, but companies who are deploying RevOps teams perform better and they grow faster. But it's not all roses. One of the top concerns we consistently see for RevOps teams is data accessibility and quality. And that makes sense. When you think about companies who might be standing up a RevOps function or shared service for the first time, they have a lot to wrestle with as they look to enable a sound data infrastructure to support these new roles, responsibilities, and processes. But beyond the challenges with data, we also see a lot of organizational challenges related to culture and change. And again, that makes sense when you think about it, because when you look at what some of these teams are chartered with, it's a lot to tackle. In this case, we're looking at a pretty typical customer lifecycle. Now, if our mandate as a RevOps team is to identify and acquire quality revenue streams that are predictable and recurring, then you essentially have to touch each stage or each of these major phases that you see here. And let's be clear, you're probably not just chartered with understanding how each of these 4 stages are performing, but more importantly, how each of these stages relate to each other. For example, when we lose a renewal or fail to expand our revenue with a customer, was it because of something that happened during the customer onboarding process? Did we waste all of our energy acquiring the wrong type of customer? To truly understand the customer experience impact, in some cases, we have to go back upstream in the business process to understand what happened when we landed that customer or when they first started to adopt our product or service. Understanding the cause and effect of our customer engagement processes and activities is critical. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, okay, this is just SalesOps 2.0. Got it, no problem. Well, not so fast. Let's talk about why this isn't SalesOps 2.0. First, as we saw with our customer lifecycle diagram, it really is a broader mandate than just sales. These teams are often tasked with working across the entire customer lifecycle, marketing, sales, and service. This means more stakeholders and a broader process footprint. And based on that mandate, it obviously means a broader data scope as well. And because of those two complexities, it invariably means a steeper change curve to change behaviors and drive adoption of new cross-functional processes. So it all sounds really challenging and really hard, but remember, companies who are deploying RevOps teams are growing faster and performing better. So what are some of the key success patterns that we see with successful RevOps teams? First, RevOps processes are broadly adopted and wired into the daily working cadence of the business. That's all the way from the chief revenue officer down to the individual contributor. Second, they take an analytics-first approach, tying insight to action so they can affect change. And third, they think about these problems holistically. They don't just look at sales or revenue. They look at, for example, customer lifetime value. When they look at the true cost of customer churn, they're factoring in not only lost revenue, but also factoring in the cost associated with acquiring that customer in the first place, as well as any potential lost expansion revenue that they anticipated to gain during the lifetime of that relationship. And that's how they're painting a holistic picture. Now, one of the questions I get all the time is, where do I get started? How do I get started? Well, let's be clear. There's no shortage of great use cases, but it's important to understand how best to sequence these capabilities to make sure that you have alignment with your success criteria. But if you're trying to figure out which use cases to start with, we like to use a high-level litmus test. The first part of that litmus test is about business value. Is the value associated with the use case commensurate with the effort to enable that use case? Second, do you have the data available to drive those analytics and insights, or at least an understanding of what data you need to start capturing? And third, are those use cases actionable? Can our teams impact our desired outcomes and affect change? Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the state of RevOps and some of the challenges and some of the success patterns. So where does Salesforce fit into the mix? Well, it's important to understand how Salesforce has evolved over the years. At first, it was an online sales application for capturing contacts and account data. But from those humble beginnings, it has evolved into a broad experience and enterprise data platform, adding capabilities related to CPQ, commerce, billing, all lead us down the path of a holistic RevOps solution. And now today, with the recent acquisition of Tableau and Slack, we can surface RevOps insights anywhere and act on those insights everywhere. So let's see it in action. Okay, so let's jump into the demo. Now, the first thing I want to do is set a little bit of context. So you're going to see a couple different technology elements in play. First thing that you're looking at here is a Tableau dashboard. As we start to progress through the demo, we'll actually see, in addition to some of the dashboards displayed here, we'll actually see predictions related to our customers. That's going to be via Einstein. And then we'll actually see how we can collaborate around this information via Slack. Now, the other thing I want to point out real quick is for this Tableau dashboard that you see here, this is a dashboard that you might see a VP of revenue operations using, maybe a director of RevOps using to assess how their annual recurring revenue is tracking. And you'll see us refer to annual recurring revenue as ARR in this demo. And so in my role, I'm really charged with understanding how's our ARR tracking, where do we have customers that are potentially at risk for churning, and how can I take action to address those customers that are at risk. Now, the other thing I'd like to point out here is how we've kind of structured this dashboard. So the first thing you'll notice is our headline, and this is our Revenue Ops Performance Dashboard. And what's really interesting is in this headline, I can see that I've got 7% of my ARRs at risk and requires action. It's really addressable risk. And then I can see another 6% here that is essentially churned, that might not even be worth taking action. They're essentially out the door already. So that's my headline. And what we like to typically enable in our dashboards is this concept that we call progressive disclosure. You start with your high-level KPIs, your headlines, and you continue to progress further down into more granular data about these critical KPIs. And so some of the KPIs that you can see here in the dashboard are total ARR at risk, what percentage of our customers are at risk, and is that trending positively or negatively? I can see the total ARR that we're managing. And then I have this interesting little widget over here called replacement costs. So what would be the cost to replace the customers that I'm potentially losing, that lost revenue due to churn? What would my replacement cost be to acquire new customers to fill that gap? And I can see if that is trending up or down. I can also see this information by product segment. So in our demo here, we're assuming that this is a tech company. They sell cloud storage, virtual machines, compute, data and analytics. And we can also look at this by segment or business segment. So enterprise, mid-market, SMB. And again, we can see of all the potential churn, what is actionable risk that we can actually address versus churn that is essentially past the point of no return. Okay, now I can also see some additional customer success metrics. So as we talked about in our customer life cycle, we're not just looking at revenue, but we're also looking at things like customer acquisition. And in this case, we're looking at some metrics related to customer success or customer service. And so for our products, I can look at their overall utilization. It's usually a metric as a RevOps leader that I'm concerned with, because utilization in many cases has a big impact on whether a customer will renew or not. I can also see what my customer success coverage looks like. How many customer success managers do I have per account? I can look at my median ARR per client. And then I can also look at downtime. So assuming that we're selling technology, services, and products, what's our downtime look like? I can look at that quickly here as well. Now, I mentioned previously that we can also see some predictive insights, and that comes from our embedded Einstein prediction right here. If I click on that little Einstein icon, I can see what's the percent attrition likelihood for a given segment. And I can also look at that at a customer level. So if I was to click down on virtual machines, one of my product segments, I'm also able to see for specific customers, and this customer called Health and Equity, if I click on it and focus on that customer, I can see that they have a 43% likelihood to churn. I can see what those top predictors are and how to improve that customer's likelihood to churn. So what actions can I take to improve that customer's likelihood to stay a customer? Okay, so what I've been able to do is drill down, find a couple of accounts here, this one, Health and Equity, that has a high risk of attrition, but still within the bounds where I can potentially save this customer by taking these recommendations from Einstein and how to improve this. So when I look at Health and Equity, one of the things I see is their downtime's pretty high. I might not push that issue directly to customer service. Maybe that's something I would want our engineering or QA team to look at. And so what I can do is come up to our comment section here, and you can see I've created some comments around a dashboard to one of my colleagues in engineering and quality control to take a look at this dashboard to assess the issue. All right, so I've sent that dashboard. These are Tableau comments that are Slack enabled. So as I make these comments here around the dashboard and mentions somebody, this comment and the related dashboard will now appear in their Slack feed. So let's go over to Slack and take a look to see what we would see here. So I'm going to click on Tableau, and you can see that dashboard that had been referenced in the comments has been pushed to me, and it's telling me, please review the downtime and check if this is a product issue. All right, so if I was to do that, one of the things I would be able to do in my Slack feed is actually create a case. And you can see I've created a case here. We have a record of that case, and I've kicked it back to our customer service team so that they can triage that case, all within Slack. All right, so not having to toggle in and out of a bunch of different systems. We've now tied the capabilities of Slack and Tableau together to drive action around certain predictions related to customer churn. So that's our demo related to ARR and revenue operations and some of the elements you would typically see in a high-performing RevOps team from an analytics and insights perspective. If you'd like to learn more, please contact us at info@atrium.ai. And thanks for joining our webinar today.